Hello, 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 hello. Hey, everybody. Awesome. All right, looks like we're connected everywhere. Glad to have you guys here. We're going to jump right into this week's live free training. So, today, what we're going to be covering is how to make sure you really get to the real root cause of the source of your anxiety. Because I know for many of you guys, you've been struggling with anxiety for a long time, maybe even several months, several years, several decades. Maybe you've had anxiety your whole life. And you've probably felt like you've made a little step forward and then a little step back where you keep relapsing and you're not quite sure why. And today, what we're going to do is really help you uncover what the real root cause of the issue is. Okay. And so, again, if you guys are new to our community, welcome. My name's Ty Hicks, founder of mentalhealthcoaching.com, and we help people reduce their anxiety by at least 75% in 90 days using a brain retraining method. And then we put these free trainings out for you guys in the community just to make sure that we can give you guys some actionable tools so you can reduce your anxiety very tangibly, especially if you're the type of person that has found that traditional therapy, medications, and coping mechanisms has just not been sufficient for you. We're really passionate in helping you get the tools you need to truly take control of your mental health. Okay, so again, today what we're covering is the following. Big, bold promise, but I'm totally prepared to deliver for you guys, and that is how to pinpoint the real root cause of your anxiety in 5 minutes without having to dig up past trauma or your entire childhood. Okay, so why are we covering this? Okay, here's why. This is why this is so important. Now, I want to be very clear. I don't think I'm a guy with all the answers. I don't think I know every single thing about mental health by any means. But I've been very blessed at this point. We've helped 519, I think, as of today's recording, 519 clients reduce their anxiety by at least 75%. And usually we can get that done in about a 90-day period. And the reason why we're able to do that, it's not because I'm so smart or I'm so special. It's just because of the process that we use. And anybody can use this process. Anybody can learn it. Anybody can do it. Right? We tend to believe that some people can get rid of anxiety or get a handle on it and other people can't. That's not necessarily true. If you follow the same steps and processes somebody else did, you can reap a very similar result. And there are 3 key things that we do that enable us to help people reduce their anxiety at such a profound level. And that is the following. And I really believe these are the 3 things that you must do. If you really truly want to overcome anxiety, you must do these 3 things, okay? And that is number 1, you must get to the real root cause of the issue, where the anxiety is coming from in the first place, where the intrusive thoughts are coming from in the first place. Because otherwise, if you do not do that, then all you will be doing is coping with the anxiety, right? And there's nothing wrong with coping. You can use journaling, meditation, talk therapy, medications, exercise, right? All sorts of different things you can do to cope with the anxiety and make the anxiety less predominant in your daily life. Basically to kind of revolve your life around the anxiety, make it not so bad, okay? You can totally do that. And in fact, what I'd love to see in the comments here, go ahead and put the word coping. I see a lot of you guys are joining with us. Put the word coping if you're currently using a set of coping mechanisms right now, because that's all that you can really figure out to do, right? You're kind of in that trap of feeling like that's the most that you can really get it handled. And I don't blame you for that whatsoever, because most people, that's all they've ever been taught. And there is some value in the coping mechanism methodology. Okay, but you have to get to the real root cause of where the intrusive thoughts are coming from in the first place, which is what I'm going to be training you guys on today. So stick with me if that's what you want to figure out. The second thing you really must do if you truly want to overcome anxiety or really dramatically reduce it is you have to retrain the brain. Okay, you cannot just use a coping mechanism where when the anxious thoughts occur, you use something to kind of calm yourself down. You can do that, but if you really truly want to overcome the anxiety, you have to use conditioning mechanisms, not coping mechanisms, conditioning mechanisms. And that's the thing I learned over 10 years ago to get my own mental health back on track. Got to use conditioning mechanisms. Okay, and they have to be the right conditioning mechanisms customized for your nervous system, because not every set of strategies is created equal. There's different types of anxiety, there's different mental health challenges, and different people experiencing them differently. So we have to find the right set of strategies that's going to work for you, and there is a set of conditioning strategies that can work for you. And then the third and final thing you must do if you really truly want to overcome anxiety, is you have to have a bulletproof relapse prevention plan in place. And I see that these three are usually where people have pitfalls. The reason why their anxiety continues is because either number one, they never get to the real root of the issue. All they ever do is just use baseline coping mechanisms to get through the day a little bit easier, and they just stay inside of the coping mindset. That'll only get you so far. Or number two, they never use conditioning-based strategies. They never learn how to retrain the brain to think positively by default, to feel content and calm by default. And so what that means is they can use the coping mechanism for a short period to feel better, but then the intrusive thoughts keep coming back, right? And if you don't deal with it at that second level, you're never really going to overcome the issue. Or third, they sometimes will get an effective set of strategies in place, but then they don't have a relapse prevention plan in place. So then when something bad happens in their life, we call these curveballs or significant emotional events like a layoff or a breakup or a sickness, or COVID was a big curveball for a lot of people, for example, right? When people go through a curveball situation, they go, oh my gosh, the anxiety's coming back. And they don't know how to deal with it because they didn't have a relapse prevention plan in place. So you have to have those three things, my friends. And if you do that, then you absolutely can get the mental health that you want. Not perfect mental health, mind you, okay? But you can live a life without repetitive, constant fear, worry, all of that type of stuff, okay? If this is making sense to you guys, go ahead and put in the comments, if you wouldn't mind, just makes sense. Or if you have questions, put it in the comments too, please. But some feedback would be helpful. And by the way, I'm going to be doing Q&A at the end for any of you guys who stick around. Okay, now let's get into the real content for today. Okay, which is, how do you get to the real root source of the anxiety? First of all, what does that sentence even mean? The root source of the anxiety. Here's what I'm talking about. There is a reason why your mind is generating automatic, negative, intrusive thoughts. Okay, for any of you guys who've been dealing with anxiety for a long period of time, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, which is that you're having the same types of thoughts probably just about every day. Okay, if that's true for you guys, can you go ahead and put true in the comments, please? Like, are you having the same types of worries and fears repetitively almost every single day? Go ahead and let me know if that's the case. Because what studies have found is that the average human being will have about 100,000 thoughts a day, but 80 to 90% of those thoughts are the same thoughts every single day. And so when anxiety is a part of your life, it means that you're having the same types of fears and repetitive thoughts popping up on an ongoing basis. Now, what we could use a coping mechanism to, basically respond to those thoughts. We could have you journal them. We could have you go meditate. We could have you use, some medication, and all of those can be valuable. All of those can help you. Okay, we could have you go talk to somebody to get it off your chest, and that might make you feel a little bit better. But all of that, you notice that as soon as you do any of those coping mechanisms, what happens the next day? You're starting right back from square one, right? Those same intrusive thoughts come back in again and again and again, right? And so what we have to do is we have to create a system for you where the intrusive thoughts are not popping up in the first place. That is the key. We have to make sure that we actually dig down deep to where they're coming from, and I'm going to show you where that is in just a second, so that they're not even popping up in the first place, because otherwise you're going to be exhausted constantly trying to manage this endless slew of thoughts. It's like playing whack-a-mole with your thoughts all day, okay? So how do we make sure that your brain does not have automatic, negative, intrusive, anxious thoughts? How do we really do that? Well, I'll tell you what you have to do is we have to resolve conflicts in your beliefs system, okay? So this is the real key. Now I'm going to have you write something down, okay? If you're taking some notes, you definitely want to understand this, because I'll tell you this next thing I'm about to teach you, in the 500 plus clients we've had where we've helped them get their anxiety reduced hugely, I have never, ever, not once seen what I'm about to teach you not apply in the process of helping them achieve that goal. In other words, this is almost like a universal law that I have seen that governs the human psyche, okay? And that is the following, okay? You need to write down this formula. We call this formula the formula for peace of mind, okay? Because if you're listening still with me on here, you're wanting peace of mind, correct? Go ahead and put peace in the comments. Is that what you're really after? Peace of mind, right? Feeling calm, feeling content. If that's you, if that resonates with you, then go ahead and put the word peace, please, in the comments, because I think that's what you're here for. And I can tell you very clearly, this formula will help you explain either A, how to get peace of mind, or B, why you are not feeling peace of mind. Okay, and that is the following. What you want to write down is LC, okay, the letter L, the letter C, equals B. LC equals B. Okay, now what does that stand for? What that stands for is the following. Life conditions equals beliefs. Okay, if someone can put that in the comments, that'd be great. Life conditions equals beliefs. That is the formula for peace of mind. Another word for peace of mind would be fulfillment or happiness. Life conditions equals beliefs. Now, what the hell does this mean? Well, here's what I will tell you unequivocally. I would bet my entire reputation on this. If you are dealing with huge amounts of anxiety right now, it is because there is a big gap between how your life currently is and your beliefs about how your life should be. Okay, another word for this would be like your expectations. Okay, now some of you are probably going, well, yeah, duh, Ty. Yes, there's this obvious thing in my life that is not meeting my expectations and it stresses me out and bothers me. Some of you, though, are going, I'm not so sure if that's really where my anxiety is coming from. Because for some of you, you might be feeling anxiety more so about like your health. You're worried like, oh gosh, is there something going on? Am I going to have a heart attack? Do I have cancer? Do I have this? Do I have that? Right? So some of you guys who have anxiety revolving around health or being out in public, or just a general fear of something bad happening, like having a panic attack or having a heart attack or something like that, you might not think that this formula applies to you, but stick with me because I'm going to share with you it absolutely does. Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple stories here to help illustrate this perfectly. I'm going to share some stories from 2 previous clients who've given me their blessing to share this. Because it'll be a very powerful learning lesson for you. Okay, so let me walk you through this. So the first one was Jen. Okay, now Jen had huge amounts of anxiety around particularly herself. She was constantly thinking that she wasn't good enough. She was constantly thinking she was going to fail. She was worried about embarrassment. She was worried about other people approving of her. She would worry about other people's opinions of her constantly. She did not have good self-esteem. And the majority of her anxiety, probably 70% plus, were intrusive thoughts of her believing that there were flaws in herself that she needed to correct and change. Okay? Now, by the way, some of you guys are having a different type of anxiety besides what I just described. Stick with me because I promise you I've got another example coming that'll apply to you. Okay? But for many of you, you're having anxiety revolved around what we call your self-concept. Right? So you're finding flaws in yourself. You think you're not good enough in some way. Okay? If that's you, by the way, can you go ahead and let me know in the comments? Just put the word me, right? If most of your anxiety revolves around like your sense of self-esteem, can you go ahead and put me in the comments or react here just so I can kind of see, right? I see some of you guys are engaging with us on Facebook and Instagram, so thanks for being here. Okay, now here's what we did. Here's what I did with Jen. I asked her the golden question, and I want you to just kind of reflect on this question as well. I asked her, I said, look, growing up, whose love did you crave more? Not who did you love more, but whose love did you crave more, your mother's or your father's? Right? And she thought about it for a second, and she said, my mother's. I said, okay, gotcha. And then just to confirm that we had the right answer, I said, now, was your mother's love less freely available? Was she less loving than your dad? And she said, oh, yeah, definitely. Okay, so that's another little secret. The answer to that question is usually whichever parent or parent figure, for me it was my stepdad, that you felt love was less freely available from. So whose love did you crave more growing up? All right. She said her mother. And so I asked her, okay, the next question was, who did you think you had to be in order to get your mother's love or in order to get your mother's approval? She thought about it for a second and she said, I had to be perfect. I said, well, okay, gotcha. What does that mean? She said, well, I had to have perfect grades. I couldn't be overweight. I couldn't, I had to have good friends. I had to bring good boys home. I had to obey. I had to never cause problems, right? I had to never upset my parents, right? And she kept telling me. And so I said, okay, gotcha. Now let me ask you, how many of those things are you still convinced that you have to be on a daily basis? And this was when she had the huge light bulb. Because all of a sudden, what she realized was that 80% of her anxiety was coming from beliefs, okay? Beliefs and expectations that she had adopted from years and years ago about who she had to be in order to be good enough, right? Because her mother, right, basically said, you need to have no flaws. You got to do this and this and this and this and this. And so what my client did, what Jen did, she developed an adaptation. Her mind said, okay, you know what? We need to make sure we get mom's love and approval. Because if we don't get mom's love, that could be really, really bad. So I know mom doesn't want us to have any flaws whatsoever. And every time she finds a flaw, she pulls love away from us. So I know what we'll do. We'll find all of the flaws in ourselves first, and then mom can't find them. And that was the core pattern that was driving her anxiety as an adult in her 40s. She now, for her whole life, she had had this constant series of thoughts where her mind would scan for problems. Am I too fat? Am I too ugly? Am I not pretty enough? Did they not like what I had to say at the company Christmas party? Blah, blah, blah. Right? And her mind was inventing things. Her mind was inventing insecurities. Her mind was inventing flaws that weren't really there, because she was trying to protect herself from losing her mother's love ever since she was a kid. And the pattern got traced back. Now, not for everybody. Some people, it doesn't quite work exactly like this. I'm going to get to that in a second, because some of you have had anxiety your whole life, like Jen did. Some of you have only had anxiety for maybe, a year or two or something like that. I'm going to be talking to you guys in a second, so stick with me. Okay, but if you feel like you've had anxiety a long time, like all the way back to your teens, especially, it is a very, very, very high likelihood that a big source of your anxiety is emanating from core beliefs that you developed about who you think you have to be. And those beliefs are pretty unsustainable, right? As in, they don't match up with reality. So remember the formula for peace of mind. And by the way, thank you so much, Gabriella, who put the formula in the comments. I really appreciate that. The formula for peace of mind is when your life conditions equal your beliefs. So Jen's beliefs were, I have to be perfect. Now, what is the likelihood that those beliefs are ever going to match up with her life conditions? 0. So think of it like the scales of justice, right? If Jen has like 100 expectations on herself, it'd be like putting 100 pounds of weight on that scale. Boom, all of a sudden there's a big mismatch, right? Because she's not going to be perfect. So if she has that belief system that says, I have to be this way, the more expectations she puts on herself, the more anxiety she will feel. Because the larger the gap is between how our life is and how we expect our life to be, the more anxiety we feel, right? And so for many of you guys, the reason why you've had anxiety for a long period of time is because you have deep ingrained beliefs about how you have to be, how life has to be, how relationships have to be, how your work has to be. And those beliefs are constantly clashing with how life actually is. Okay, just so I can, sometimes this concept is a little confusing to people. So can I get some feedback from you guys? If this is making sense to you or you can relate to this, can you just say like, makes sense in the comments, please? Okay, because I guarantee you if you're feeling anxiety and you've spent a long period of time especially, it's because there are unmet beliefs and expectations. And because your life conditions are not matching up with those expectations. And you probably have beliefs currently embedded in your subconscious that will always be a mismatch with how life actually is. Okay? That's the thing that has to be fixed. So here's the thing. Here's what I asked Jen next. I said, look, your current beliefs are you need to have no flaws, everybody has to approve of you, and you can never displease people, right? And she confirmed, yep, those are my big beliefs and expectations. I said, okay, great. So long as you believe you must abide by those 3 things, what are the chances you're ever really going to feel peace of mind? And she realized 0, not going to happen. So what I had to do with her is we had to dig those beliefs out of her subconscious, right? It's kind of like pulling a weed out of the garden, right? You have to get a damn shovel, right? And that's where I taught her our process for eliminating limiting beliefs. Because she knew intellectually, a lot of you guys know intellectually, like, oh yeah, I know that doesn't make sense. I know I need to stop chasing after people's approval. But then you keep chasing after people's approval. Do any of you guys do this? Like, you intellectually know what you're doing is nuts, but then you can't stop the compulsion to continue to do it. That's because the belief is embedded in your subconscious, deep, deep down, the deepest part of you. Excuse me. So we have to pull it out of the subconscious, because otherwise you're just going to be constantly mad at yourself for feeling like this, okay? So that's what we did with Jen. Now let me give you a different story with a different person, because some of you guys have had anxiety that's a little bit more recent, and it's a little bit more severe, and it centers around something a little bit different than insecurities. So another client of mine I had a couple years ago, his name was Derek, and he was having extreme health-related anxiety, right? So he was worrying that he was going to have a heart attack. He was worrying that he was going to have an anxiety attack. He kept leaving work. It had been that way, I think, for a couple years, you know, but not like his whole life, just like a couple years. And for him, it wasn't that he felt bad about himself. It wasn't that he had insecurities or self-esteem issues. The problem was he kept having this constant fear of something bad happening out in the near future, okay? And I know many of you guys can relate to this. And so you might not think that this formula would apply in a situation like that, but it does, just in a different way. So in Jen's situation, her beliefs, you know, there were a lot, like there were like 30 beliefs I had to help her uncover, and then we had to pull those out, because if we don't pluck every single limiting belief out, then there's still a chance that she could relapse. So that's what we have to do, is identify every single subconscious belief. But anyway, most of her beliefs centered around those three I just shared with you. Wanting people's approval, trying to be perfect, never displeasing people, okay? However, Derek didn't have those types of beliefs. He didn't have those types of expectations. He was fine not being perfect. He was fine with displeasing people. So why in the world would he be having anxiety? Well, here's why. It was because he had developed a slightly different type of belief system. His belief system was overvaluing certainty. So basically what we figured out was his belief was, I must be 100% certain that nothing bad is ever going to occur with my physical health. And if I am not 100% certain, I cannot function, right? So he had developed what we call a certainty-oriented belief. His nervous system had basically started to crave certainty at an unhealthy level, and at a level that would never, ever really be met. Right? So remember the formula, right? Think of it like a scale. If your life matches up with your beliefs, you're going to feel peace of mind. For him, he had a belief, an expectation that said, I have to be 100% certain. I have to be completely, totally, absolutely certain that nothing bad is happening, nothing bad is ever going to happen, right? Well, here's the problem. You can't ever be 100% certain. So because his belief was, I have to be 100% certain, that's why he was so in tune with every single sensation in his body. Like, ooh, what is that? What is that? What is that? What is this? What's that little tingle? He started Googling all the time. He started checking out like information on WebMD constantly. He was using a heart rate monitor. He was checking his pulse, because his belief was, I have to be 100% certain. So if your belief system is, I have to be 100% certain, it means you're going to be in a constant state of checking every single variable, turning over every single rock, trying to find information that you don't have, right? And that, frankly, you're never going to get. And he kept going to the ER like once a week, right? Seeing his cardiologist like a couple times a month. They kept telling him there's nothing wrong with you, but that wasn't good enough for him, because he needed to be 100% certain, okay? So can you guys relate to this? Can you put the word certainty in the comments if you can resonate with this? If a lot of your anxiety is revolving around the desire to be certain, to be in control, to feel safe, to feel secure, okay? And so what we had to do in his situation was I had to help him extract and remove that belief that said I have to be 100% certain. So what that meant was we had to train his nervous system to be able to feel safe and secure and calm and comfortable, even in uncertain situations, such as being out in public, or driving the car or being on a plane or whatever. Okay, and now he's literally living his best life, right? He's like going on vacations with the family. He's driving wherever he wants to drive. He's going to work and doesn't have to leave work early because his belief system now is I don't need to be 100% certain in order to feel okay. So you see how big of a change that was? So long as he believes in his gut, in his nervous system, so long as his nervous system is convinced of I must be 100% certain, he's going to constantly have intrusive thoughts because his brain is going to be trying to level that equation out, right? That's all anxiety is, by the way, guys. Anxiety is just your brain trying to close the gap between these two sides of the formula. Your brain is just trying to figure out, how can I meet these expectations? How do I become perfect? How do I please everybody? How do I get everybody's approval? How can I be totally certain? How do I become totally safe? And your brain is trying to close that gap constantly, but some of those beliefs and expectations are not possible. They are not manageable. So long as you feel convinced that that is the only way to feel peace of mind, you'll have anxiety. And the only way we get rid of the anxiety is we have to pluck out that old limiting negative belief. We have to literally extract it from your nervous system, replace it with something else, and train your brain with the new belief so that it locks in, so that you can feel safe and comfortable and secure no matter where you are. Okay? Is this making sense to you guys? I hope so. All right. So I went a little bit deep on this concept, but I wanted to make sure that you guys got some real cool insights. Okay. So I'll see you guys next week at 2:00. If you guys are interested in being on the wait list for being a client, we did close enrollment last week. We had a ton of applications come in, so we're very full right now, but we're planning on opening this up for a couple people, maybe like 3 to 5 next week. If you would like to be on the wait list and be notified first before the general public when we're taking applications for clients, just go ahead and comment wait list, okay? Or send me a DM. If you're on Instagram, send me a DM with the word wait list, because this video will disappear as soon as the live is over. Okay, but if you're on Facebook, you can comment wait list, and I'll either message you or you message me, and then that way we can put you on the wait list if you want to be on the wait list to be a client. But our clients, the thing that we do with them is we guarantee in writing they're going to be satisfied that we reduce their anxiety by 75% in 90 days, or we continue to work with them one-on-one for free until they do. So if that sounds interesting, go ahead and let us know, and we'll be happy to support you, okay? But thanks for showing up, guys, and we'll see you next Thursday at 2:00 Eastern. Take care. Bye.